Okay, so welcome now to the fourth and final video on the data access objects pattern. Um, and this is going to be about using the pattern. So we're going to be now on the client side and see how we can interact with the database from the client side. So let's get to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my main class. And remember, the first exercise that we did was to create an instance of the data source. So one of the main objectives of this pattern is separate the data source from the client, in this case, the main class, so I won't have direct access to the data source. So instead, I'm going to access the data source through the MySQL customer DAO. One of the things that I mentioned in the video 1 or video 2, I don't remember, is that we want to treat this MySQL customer DAO as a customer DAO. Why? Because I don't care what implementation it is. It could be a Postgres implementation, it could be a MySQL implementation, it could be a MongoDB implementation. It doesn't matter. All of them has to have the same methods that the customer DAO has. So I'm going to say customer DAO, and I'm going to call this DAO, is going to be equals to a new MySQL customer DAO. Now that MySQL customer DAO is going to allow me to now access the database that I need. So suppose, for example, I want to get all of the customers. So how do I do that? I go and say, well, for example, I'm just going to put it inside a print this. Well, I'm just going to put that in an array. I'm going to say array list of customers, and I'm going to call this customer is equals to DAO dot get customer. So from the client point of view, this works beautifully. Just need to do the import. From the client point of view, I just need to go to the DAO and query get customers. I don't care what is the database syntax for that. I don't know anything about queries. I don't even know whether this is a MySQL query or not. I can treat it as a customer DAO, and I can say, please get me the customer. So let's see if this works. So I'm just going to print that to the console. Customers, and run that. And the connection was established, and I'm getting an array list that has the data in there. So if I go all the way to the right, I should be able to see all of the elements in that array. Now, of course, that array has something like 256 elements, so we probably can't even see them all. Well, there it is, 227. That's all of the elements that I have in that. And that was actually the last one that we added in the previous video. So all of the elements are in that array list. So that is a good thing, so that we can handle all of the elements in just one single array list. So that's testing the first method. Let's test the second method, which is getting just one customer. So I can say customer C, for example, is equals to DAO dot find customer by ID, and in this case, let's say, for example, the 227, the last one that we added. So I can go and say system.out.println C, and let's see what happens. There it is. So my first line, the first line there is my full array list with all of the names, but the second one is that last name in particular, which is the last one that we added, the 227. So we can do that for any of them. So for example, if you were looking for number 126, which probably exists, so let's run that. There it is. Is Gabriel Oliveira, and it has that value in there. Perfect. Let's do the last one, which is saving a customer. So I can save a customer. I can create a new instance of the customer class, or I can use the customer the instance of the customer class that I just got in here. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to do DAO that save customer, and I'm going to pass the customer C. Who is the customer C? That last Gabriel Oliveira. What is going to happen is that Gabriel Oliveira is going to be storing 126, but it's also going to be stored in 128, which is the next ID. So let's do that. And actually, not only let's do that, let's also save that. Let's say C is equals to DAO that find customer ID 228, because it's the new ID. We're expecting the ID to auto increment from 227 to 228, and then we can system that out of println C. So hopefully what is going to happen is 126 is going to be Gabriel Oliveira, and that's going to be printed. But then after I save it again, it's going to be in position 228, and then I print it. Okay, so let's save that. There it is. So I can see the Gabriel Oliveira exists in the database as 126, but it also exists in the database at 228. I'm not gonna run this again because I don't want to keep populating the same value again and again and again in the database. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to system that out at println the size of this array list. So I'm going to say customers dot size. So I'm just going to print the size to see how many elements are in there. Perfect. So 228, that's exactly what we were expecting. Just one final test to make sure that I'm not lying to you here, guys, is I'm going to run this again. I'm going to select all from customers. And I'm just going to go back to the very end here, and you can see my last value is a 228. So actually the value is being stored in the database as we were expecting. Good. So you will have a full access to this code. I'm going to put this code up on Moodle fully commented. So you should have the whole thing for you to play. So you're going to find in Moodle two versions. One is pre-class and the other one is post-class, which is this final version all modified. And as I said, you're going to find it all fully commented. Brilliant. So let's go back to the slides. And I just want to discuss a few final things. The first thing is advantages of this. Advantages of the data access object method is if you have a new database, all you need to do is to create a new data source and a new DAO that follows the same interface. So suppose for some reason your system is migrating from MySQL to Postgres, well, all you need to do is to rewrite your implementations, and that should be straightforward. And each entity will have its own data access object, making these very modular and flexible, because that means that if you have, for example, a new entity in your database because your system is expanding and you need to store different data in your database, so all you need to do is to create a new class DAO for that particular entity. So in this case, for example, we only have customer, but if you have multiple tables, each one will have its own DAO. So that's very, very modular. That's really good. A couple of drawbacks of the DAO. Some people argue that it's too broadly defined. Too broadly defined, I don't know what you think. I disagree with that, because the fact that you can define what methods you have in the interface, I think that is actually really, really good. Maybe that's what they mean, saying that it shouldn't be so flexible, and the flexibility of the pattern is something that I really, really find fantastic. The argument that is this pattern is procedural in nature, and I can see where that comes from, because although everything is very encapsulated and modular, my DAO is tightly coupled to the data source, and the other way around. So the three classes, they're tightly coupled to each other. So it's very procedural in that regard, and I totally understand that as well. So that's one of the issues with this pattern. The other thing, if my system keeps expanding, so that means that I need to keep adding more criteria to the DAO, and that might be messy because more criteria means more methods. Suppose you have more attributes in your entity, that means that you need more filters in your entity to find people. So that might get messy very, very quickly. So that's something that you need to keep an eye on. So like any of the patterns that we've seen so far, none of them is perfect, and this is no exception. But it has really good pros and is heavily used in the industry. So so it's actually relevant. So okay, that's it for these 4 videos, and I'm really sorry that it ended up being 4 videos. So make sure you take a look at them on your own time, and I'll see you in the next live class, which is going to be on Friday. So all the very best, guys, and I'll see you in the next class.